I want to do a quick video and build breakdown on my Gladius Extra Large XL. This thing is pretty sweet. I wanted to show you the build of this and the layout and how I got everything to work. I've got the new Meus V2 axles in here. I like these a lot. I think they're really good. I like the weight and I like the simplicity of them in terms of the design. I like this part a lot better than I did the V1. That pumpkin on the V1 got caught on everything, so you had to buy either like diff sliders or shave it down, and this one, it's a lot more manageable for sure. While I have this flipped over, these are RC Steve links. I think these are super cool. I don't think I've personally ever bought a set from him, but I bought a truck or two that had links from him, but this is the first time I went through the process. I like it. It looks really cool, and I think I paid $100 or so for the upgraded coloring, and then I also got the steering and the drag link as well. I wanted it all to match. It looked pretty cool to me, at least when I saw on his Instagram, so I went ahead and did it. I had an extra deadbolt front from Injora in the stainless, so I threw that up there, and then these are the stock that you can buy in a package. I'll put the link in the description below, but these are from Amazon. These are the Axial brand ones. This is a deadbolt front. I trimmed it just a little bit, and then I believe this is a C10 front in the rear. I'm not sure if this is the correct setup, and the reason I'm saying that is because I'm running the motor backwards and flipped around. If you were running it forward, you might have to use slightly different drive shafts to make the geometry work. So up front, this is a Lizard Pro from LGRP. That's their branded one. They're all the same. On the other side, it's a decased FlySky GT5 receiver. I put shrink wrap on this side just to kind of clean it up a little bit. I was mounting this on top of the Lizard Pro before, but I felt like it was a little bit too high. So what I did is I kind of jammed it into the side here, if you can see that, and then I put a zip tie here underneath the I don't even know what that's called, that little black part there, like the part that holds like the prongs or something if that's even a word, and it kind of wedges into place there, and you can see I'm trying to move it, it doesn't move, which is pretty nice. And then there's just a little bit of clearance between the receiver and motor, so that it ended up working out pretty good for me. And then I just kind of pigtailed the rear there. That's just a little tiny zip tie. What I do is I take the cord and I wrap it around a screwdriver, and then I just basically take a zip tie and shove it through and get it as relatively tight and snug as I can. This is a Venge RC motor mount in here, which is pretty sweet. Obviously, this motor we've seen probably a million times, and we see it a million times because it's good. The micro Komodo. And then on the inside, I'm running a stock plastic geared transmission, but I had to get, well, I shouldn't say I had to, I always get the upgraded case from, I usually go with Trial just because and it costs a couple bucks more, but I know it's gonna fit in terms of the fitment and placement and all that. And the reason that I do that is because anytime I go in from like a plastic material or 3D printed part into transmission case, I normally want something that's like metal into metal and not metal into plastic, because I had a tendency to strip out the transmission gears, or the transmission case I should say, in the original ones every time I went with a plastic case. These are the Injora magnet mounts. I'm still kind of fiddling with the stock placement, I'm still fiddling a little bit with regards to how I want this thing to sit and how I want it to move in terms of shock positioning and then running springs or not running springs. So this might not be the final form for this build, but it's a form that's going to run at Proline. And I purposely wanted it to be really low because I know like you're not going to run into a lot of like clearance issues. You know, at Proline, it's mainly large boulders and that sort of thing. So I think I'll be fine. Up front, I'm running the Servo Beast by Mofo RC. It's cool, it works really well. I haven't really had any problems with you know, his products or anything like that. And then the Mofo horn. So other than that, I'll put some running footage in here on this thing, and you can kind of see how it fits together. Wheels and tires on this build, these are Mofo RC. In the front, I'm running brass rings. In the rear, I'm running the aluminum rings. A good tip too is if you're running brass in the front and aluminum in the back, and sometimes for me it's hard to kind of feel which is which because you're maybe talking like 10 or 15 grams, and that might be hard, is I put 4 bolts in the front to designate the front, and then 3 in the rear. So that's a good tip if you're running a weight biased wheel. Another thing I wanted to mention too is the body on this thing. This is not the best work I've ever done, but I had this sitting around and I figured I might as well use it. You could even see I had some holes in it from another build. But on the inside, this is just shugu, and then you basically just put it on the top here, and then, well, you know how magnet mounts work. But long story short is I had to do a lot of trimming on this body to get it to kind of contour. And if I were to do it again, I may keep a little bit more here. Again, this is a body that I had before, and I had previously cut it. So I did try to trim up this line and follow the chassis, just because, again, I was trying for an all-out line slayer, so the body to me didn't really matter a whole lot. It's more just like covering the battery, or covering the motor and all the key parts in there if it falls over. So it is what it is. These are the Injora 40 mil shocks. I took the springs off. I was messing a little bit with how I wanted this to sit, and I had springs on it before, but anytime I am looking to get as much performance out of a rig as possible, I always kind of just default to taking the springs out, because it's, one, going to sit lower, and 2, you're going to get a good amount of articulation even if you mount the shocks higher up in the chassis, as you can see here, or maybe even a little bit more forward. You would run them forward like this I have in the rear to do a couple things. One, it's going to make the overall spring or the feel of the shock feel a little softer, and then 2, what you are going to notice is that when you lay the shocks over at different angles, the chassis is going to sit either higher or lower, or it's going to kind of settle in a different position. When I'm looking to make a comp rig, like an all-out line slayer, what I typically do is try to get it as low as possible, and then in the front I want the shocks to kind of be almost vertical. And what you could do is you could even run like shorter shocks in the front and then keep the 40 mils in the back too, and that way when you're climbing, you're not going to have as much of a drop out here. You could also combat that by running rubber bands, or I know the LGRP like limiting strap with the rubber bands is also really good too, but I didn't have an extra one, and I didn't want to order one, and I didn't want to run rubber bands on it. I just kind of wanted to run it as it is and just kind of see how it does and go from there. So that's it for this video. I know it's quick, it's short, it's to the point, but I will see you at Proline, and then hopefully after that I'll have a video out my travels and adventures there. So see you guys later.